There are aspects of my life where I thought I would never stop crying about that this man has helped minister to me and minister to my heart in ways that professional therapists couldn't heal.
We've got this remarried love. It's better than we dreamed of. Left the pain in the past. Just you and me.
Welcome to Remarried Love, where we help you build a strong, healthy legacy remarriage. I'm D.
And Aki.
And in this podcast, you'll gain tools for intentional growth because a legacy remarriage is built on purpose.
We are so glad you're here.
In this episode, we interview a senior pastor and his wife to discuss remarriage after divorce.
Cledra is a life and business strategist, author, and speaker who empowers high-achieving women to step fully into purpose, both personally and professionally.
And joining her is Bishop Eddie Gross, a respected spiritual leader with over 25 years of ministry experience and the founding senior pastor of Equipped for Destiny Church in North Carolina.
In this episode, we discuss remarriage after divorce, sin or second chance.
So let's get into it.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
Thanks for being here.
How you doing?
So I read your bio to give people an idea of your professional status. What would you like to share with the audience of who you are, and let us know how long you guys have been remarried?
We have been married 12 years. So thankful for that. And as far as what we do, we're up to ministry most of the time. And in terms of work, like you mentioned, I'm a life coach and business strategist. I work for myself from home.
I also work from home. I'm a bivocational pastor. I've been in IT and global networking for a long time. I also enjoy golfing, and I'm a consummate techie and married to a phenomenal world-class life coach.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we know that deciding to marry again isn't a light decision. It comes with reflection, healing, and a lot of internal work. So take us back to that space. After your divorce and before you met each other, how did you know you were open to marriage again?
For me, I took 2 years of not dating anyone, and I got a lot of therapy. It was a lot of prayer. I had a lot of mentors. And it was in that 2-year period that I went through not really wanting to talk to any man other than my dad at that time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did not want to go into another relationship carrying anger. So when I was able to release the anger and actually have more gratitude for my journey, it's actually in prayer, reading that a man finds a wife. And that was like a light bulb of God made me a wife. It wasn't that I was no longer a wife because I was divorced. And then that's when that like desire started coming back again. And I knew I wanted to be married again. I'll let him share his journey.
I kind of agree with Cledra, went through a period of introspection. I had gotten to the place where I no longer trusted my own decision making related to relationships. So I had to go to God in prayer, like I'm doing something wrong here. Just took a lot of time to let God deal with me and to do a lot of introspection, a lot of growth. But deep down, I don't think I ever lost the desire. I knew who I am. I knew who I was, knew who God called me to be. It was just really, since I think, a matter of timing, healing.
So Cledra, you're saying that it took about 2 years for you. And Eddie, how long did it take for you? Or you felt like you were always wanting to be married, but the time that you took for that introspective, about how long was that?
It took me about almost 10 years. And in between that, obviously, there's some relationships in there that didn't succeed. And so I would say probably before I met Cledra, about a good 3 years of just self-introspection, kind of, hey, put things on pause. One of the things I realized that I wasn't making the best choices for me as it relates to my ministry. I think I was making some decisions based on some other things that Eddie thought he wanted, not really making, is this person good for my ministry, the first and foremost thing that I should be examining. So I kind of got that straight, and I'm like, okay, God, I think I'm ready now. So,
I mean, we can totally relate to
Oh, yeah,
that.
we can definitely relate. And I'd like to say that I took some time to do a lot of introspection, on myself. When I was working, now we don't work for anyone else right now, but when I was working for someone else, I would go to my car during my lunchtime and I would get in my Bible and spend time just reading it to understand who I am as this new person. Because now I'm a little bit different because I went through a divorce. I've always wanted to be a person who wanted to be a married man. I'm not a single guy. I don't want to be that guy out there in the clubs or the guy that's chilling out there and who says, I don't need no lady.
Yeah.
Life is my woman. No, I
Totally
want to be
understand.
married and I just needed the right wife. So like you, Eddie, I want to find a good woman and have God, tell me who that woman was. And it's funny because I actually met my wife in church.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
meet.
Nice,
But
nice.
so for me, when I was dealing with that stage after divorce and before I got married, I really needed to work on bitterness. That was something that I didn't want to have root in my life. I had seen what that did to some of my family members, and I knew that I did want to be married again. And so I just worked on healing and forgiveness. It was a lot of praying. I had a prayer partner, and she would help me pray for my ex. She would help me to pray for my healing. And it was really hard at first.
Yeah. Somebody says, pray for your
Yeah,
ex.
when
What?
Yeah.
when she
Yeah.
had me do that, I couldn't do it at first. I said, "Well, I can just say amen to I'll let
Yeah.
I'll let you pray,
I'll let you pray and I say amen.
and
Yeah.
I'll say
And
amen."
I say amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as, we went through that process, I was able to then pray for my ex, and then I felt freer and I felt more open to, loving again. When you guys were both re-singled, how did you prepare to be someone else's spouse?
Interesting question. So, in addition to what I just mentioned, the 2 years, I, similar to what you were sharing, the releasing, I see this as a phase of releasing I say my husband, okay? So, releasing him and wishing him the best, because I believe when you hold love, you'll have love to move forward. So, in that releasing, I actually went through a process of, all of the things that I thought would happen that did not happen, and grieving that. So allowing myself to actually grieve the loss of the life I thought I would have.
Mhm.
And so that was a part of, I would say, if I had to use an analogy of like cleaning my soul's slate of
Mm-hmm.
the impact of that marriage to be prepared for him. Now that was my attempt. I still
Yeah.
don't think there's anything like being married that actually.
Right.
Right.
But to specifically answer your question, in that I knew, similar to what you said, that my heart had some serious plugs in it that
Mhm.
only the Lord could heal,
Right.
and Christian
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he does best, right?
Man.
That's right.
And so Eddie, how did you prepare to be someone else's spouse?
I think in addition to, obviously preparing and learning prayer, I had an incredible amount of questions that I needed answered. I needed to know why. And even as I, looked at myself, examined who I was, where I was, and worked to make those adjustments within myself, I still kept kind of bumping into these bad relationships. I said, okay, wait a minute. I'm missing here. What I kind of realized was, yes, you could do all the work you want on yourself. You still got to choose someone who's doing work within themselves. So I had to learn that it's not my place to take complete ownership over failed relationships, and that I needed to choose better. And so I kind of, for a season, kind of pursued destiny, pursued ministry, kind of put blinders on for a minute. But that desire to be a husband and a leader never went away.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of slowed some things down. I put her before some other people and said, tell me what you think.
Well, wise counsel does help. Having a multitude of counselors does help if you're trying to do something very important, like get married.
You've probably heard us mention this before.
We were the children of divorced parents, and we both have been divorced ourselves.
And now we're 15 years strong in our remarriage journey. So trust us when we say we get it when starting over and building a new life together. If you're ready to reclaim your power in love, life, and money, I wrote Power Over All just for you. It's real, it's encouraging, and it's meant to walk with you as you heal and grow. There's also a companion journal to help you track your progress and reflect all year long. Grab your copy today and step fully into the power God already gave you. Links in the description. Now let's get back to the episode.
And so, Eddie, like you, I actually ran into someone or people, I guess you could say, who were similar but not the one. So it was like they were close to my wife now, but they were not like her. It was something that was off. And so I could see how, in my opinion, the enemy will bring something before you and present it to you. And like you said, you have to choose wiser. So I had to step back, make sure I didn't choose that, and wait until God showed me who the right person was. And like I said, I did meet her in church. Actually, she sat right next to me in church.
Right.
Yeah. So, our story is that we were both going to the same church, and we never realized it when had been married before. We had gone to the same church. We were divorced, and so we call it re-singled. And I was getting up to go with my father to church, and we were a little bit late, and the usher sat me right beside my husband. But at the time, there was two guys, and she sat me in between them.
She asked me to move over, and
One
seat, and then
So
the
I
other
could
guy
sit.
was still in his seat, so there was an empty seat in front of me and behind me, and that's where she sat, and then her father sat actually in front of us.
Yeah, because it was really crowded that day or something, so they were trying to find a seat for us. So it just so happened I was trying to like open up some candy or something, and I was being loud, and he was looking at me like, "Girl,
Yeah.
be quiet."
You know how they had the old school candy with the
Yeah,
wrapper?
I was rapping it,
Yeah.
and it was just really loud. I'm so sorry.
I was like, what are you doing?
But then I was like, "Would you, do you want one?" And he's like, "Oh, sure." And so
Did I take it?
yeah, I think you took it. And
Oh,
so then what was weird is that day the pastor's mic went out, all the sound system went out.
Mm-hmm.
So no one could hear the musicians, the choir, anything. And so he's kind of yelling, just turn to each other and
Pray
let's
for each
pray
other.
for each other.
Right.
So it just so happened I didn't turn this way to the other guy. I would have been like in his group.
Yeah.
So I turned this way with Darius. And so we started praying. And I asked him, I said, well, what
Oh,
would
here's another key thing that the pastor said. He said, you don't have to touch anyone. Just
he
pray
said,
for them. You don't have to touch
you don't
anybody.
have to, if
Yeah.
you're uncomfortable with holding hands or touching anyone, you don't have to do that. And I must not have heard that part because I was just like,
Yeah.
sir.
Well, she touched my arm.
Yeah.
She touched the bottom part of my elbow.
Yeah, or something. And so he's just like, oh, she's violating the rules.
Yeah.
So I touched his arm and I asked him, what would he like? What does he need prayer for? And he told me, he said, well, I'm recently divorced or something like that. And, I whatever you said about your business and your life and all of that. And I said, I totally understand where you're coming from. And I started praying. So I was done. And then he said, what do you need prayer for? And I said, well, a lot of things. I said, but the main thing is just bitterness. I just got divorced and I don't want to harbor that bitterness inside of me. He said, okay, I understand. He prayed for me and I don't know what happened. This has never happened to me before, but I started weeping. I can't even say crying. It was like the ugly cry.
Yeah.
I fell on the ground.
Her dad's turning around.
He's looking at me like, what is going on? Do you know this person?
Yeah, what is this guy doing
I
to
was
you?
like,
What is that?
No. And Darius, he just held. Now, we don't even know each other. This
No.
is like the first time we ever met.
We're holding hands.
Yeah, he held my hand really tight, and he just started praying for me even harder. Then, like, the people around are looking, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that it was so deeply rooted inside of me that this stranger is praying for me. And
Well, God's pulling it out.
yeah, and
Right.
it's coming out. So after, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I am so embarrassed. Like, my makeup is smeared. I don't know what I look like. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Well, she fell to the ground.
Yeah, I fell into the ground.
down,
The usher is helping me. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting there, the sound system comes back on. So the preacher, he's able to speak, and we're talking about it. And I just was like in shock, and I realized I'm still holding his hand.
Yeah, it was a while. It was a long time.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm still holding this man's hand. It's been about 20, 30 minutes now. And I don't know if we let go. And
No, we haven't. We didn't let go.
I couldn't remember. So I'm sitting there in church holding this stranger's hand, and I didn't know how to let go. So I was like, God, help.
It was one of those uncomfortable, weird things. Like, if I let go, it's going to be kind of creepy. If I keep holding on, it's creepy. So what do you do?
What do we do? So I don't know what he was thinking, because I didn't want to look at him.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like waited till a part of the sermon or something. You're supposed to maybe, well, you don't have to, but you clap or do something. I was just like, I took my hand back.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was very embarrassed. And then after church,
well, I came to you and
yeah.
your father, and I asked if I could actually get your phone number, not in a creepy way. I just wanted to make sure you were okay.
Yeah, you
genuinely, I did, because there's all types of people in church.
Yeah,
but I didn't want to come off creepy, so I said, is there any way that I can
check on you?
Check on you,
Yeah.
get your phone number and check on you just to make sure you're okay, because that was a lot.
Yeah, I didn't even know I never have ever done that. So I was just like, I don't know. And so I gave him like my work card.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want him to call me personally. But that's how it happened. He called me the next day, and
Right on time.
we talked every day. Like, I mean, it just seemed like every single day we spoke to each other. We had long conversations. And to this day, I don't think there's a day that we have not ever spoken to each other since then.
Yeah, we've pretty much been with each other every
Yeah.
day
Yeah.
for 16 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how.
What a beautiful,
Oh,
Yeah.
what a God story.
Yeah.
yeah. It was crazy. And we got married like within 6 months.
Yes, 6 months.
6
Yeah.
months of
Yeah.
meeting initially. I think that because our pastor decided to have a
mass wedding in January, because we were talking about getting married
we met in June.
We met in June or something, and so we were going to get married actually in February or March.
Yeah, maybe springtime.
Somewhere around there. And he said he wanted to do it for people in January.
Yeah,
he said God put it on my heart to marry people who want to be married.
Right.
And I was like, whoa.
And he's like, there's not going to be any premarital counseling. You don't have to go through anything.
But we did premarital
counseling.
counseling.
You just have to be legally available to be married to someone and have a ring. And he did a mass wedding, and there was like no cost for it. And hundreds of people signed up.
I think 200 couples were originally signed up.
And only like
But
20 or 30
But it went down to
couples.
like 10%, which is 20 couples.
Yeah.
And then another couple bailed out on the same day.
So it was a wonderful experience to get married again for us. Wow. From the time we met to how our marriage took place, the timing, it was great. So that kind of segues into my question for you guys is, how did you know, Cledra, how did you know that Eddie was the one? And Eddie, how did you know that Cledra was the one?
Well, let me just say this. I call him my favorite pastor. And that's not just because I love him and he's the love of my life, but his command of the word and how he has opened my intimacy with Christ. And he did that day one with the question of, he asked me to go to Bible study. And I was like, I'm growing a business. I don't really have time. Like, what part of, I'm busy. And so I go to Bible study, and I didn't know he was going to be the pastor, but fast forward, something happened in that Bible study that I was really convicted about where I had positioned God at that time in my life. And I remember driving. At that time, I was still a pharmaceutical sales rep, but I remember driving, and I was like, Lord, you have to help me, because I'm really in love with this man. And if this is not it, I need to know. And I pulled into a church parking lot and I prayed, and I had such a release that I just knew this is who I was supposed to spend the rest of my life with. It was just a knowing, and it was a spiritual knowing,
Yeah.
from that Bible study to that church parking lot to when we got married. It was like just a deep spiritual move.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously think he's very attractive and all of that, but it was so much deeper than that. It was truly deeper.
Yeah, so on our first date, we lived within a mile of one another
Yeah.
and had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked a contract at night. She was still at Lilly, and our paths would have never crossed. So I go on this date with this wonderful woman, and like I said, I've made some, some missteps along the way, some bad relationships. I'm like, okay, so how's this gonna go? So I got, this narrative in my head, like, okay, I know she looks good, but let me see what this is about. So we go on a date and I talk to her, and there's something very much different about her. We met in Atlanta. Atlanta is a very different kind of place to talk about dating. I'll just say
Oh,
it.
we know.
She was just not the typical Atlanta type. It just overwhelmed. I was like, wow, this woman, as much as she has to her credit, achievements and things of that nature, she just was humble, and it just warmed my heart. So I left our initial date knowing that she could potentially be the one, but I wouldn't tell her that. Obviously, wisdom. I ain't gonna tell her that. Yeah. So smart move, yeah. But I knew that God was doing something because I had asked him, similar to what she said. I said, Lord, any people in my life that's not meant for me, that's not good for me and my ministry. I said, Lord, I need you to, get rid of them.
Yeah.
And when I tell you, I mean, he cleaned the slate, and my attention was solely on her. And that's where it stayed. And 12 years later, that's where it still is. And so it was just a knowing, prayer, peace. Because it wasn't like we didn't have our challenges along the way as we walked that journey out. But God's peace never left the decision. And that's where we are today, 12 years later.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
For long periods of time, since day one, and just about so many and substantive things. Like he mentioned Atlanta, and we had dated people in Atlanta. It was just so shallow in both of our minds.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's just like fresh air for both of us to meet someone who talked about things that really mattered. I'll say this because I think it matters to what your question. We would literally order the same books without talking to each other about which book we were going to order. I mean, that's just how connected at a deep level we were then, and
we had that too,
and we still continue to be. I just love him at a level that I've never loved anyone before.
That's what's beautiful. I mean, when you find someone that can expand your heart, that you feel like you've been expanded.
Oh, beyond what I thought possible, right?
Exactly. That's what I felt like too.
Well, I was going to say that before we met, I actually would drive to work and pray for my future wife because a thought came into my head that she is actually on the earth right now. She's not a fetus. She's not in the spiritual realm. She's on the planet, and she's close to my age. So I already knew that. God gave me that wisdom. And so I said, you know what, God, I'm praying for her day that whatever she needs to learn, that you are showing her all of the things that she needs to learn for her day and for her life and for our future marriage, because she will be my wife, and do the same for me. Show me the things that I need to know for her as her future husband. Give me the strength, the knowledge, the wisdom, the faith. Give me everything, the power to be able to go through and do what I need to do to be the man for her that she is wanting in her life. And so I would do that while I'm driving on the highway. And it's funny because when I finally got to meet her, I saw her and I knew this was the woman for me because I've already been praying for her for quite some time.
Yeah.
And he already let me know, and through the Spirit, I guess that's what we felt when we connected, when we held hands.
Yeah.
It was like a power surge.
It was.
And that's what exactly happened when we were praying for each other.
Yeah. And, it's funny. We met in Atlanta. So I, had been in Chicago, and then I was now in Atlanta. He had already been there. And when I got my divorce and I was on the dating scene in Atlanta, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And I dated someone back. I wasn't really dating. I call it
That's what she says.
I call it hanging out. I was hanging out with people like back in North Carolina or something like that, because I was like, there's no one here in Atlanta. And I know I would ask God, I'm not going to pick anyone because I don't feel like I can pick well.
Yeah.
But I don't know who in Atlanta is going to be available. And I think it was interesting that you guys said that you lived so close together and didn't even know each other existed.
No.
And like I said before, we were going to the same church. It was a mega church, so it's easy not to know everybody. But it was just so interesting how close we were.
But yet so far away.
You know, physically, we had been in the same space many times and never knew the other one existed.
But once I saw that she did exist, after we had our encounter of holding hands and praying for each other, I would see her every other Sunday, and my heart would flutter when I saw her, and I was like, wow, I saw her walking down, the aisle, what have you, and I'd be way over here, and I'd be like, oh my gosh.
That was after we met. Because,
after we met. Yeah.
To give you some insight, he would be at church with his kids every other Sunday, and then he would be by himself.
Yeah.
So when he was by himself, would you see me when you were with the kids?
I saw you when I was with the kids.
Yeah,
that's why I was so far away.
He would sit in the back so he could see everybody. He would sit with the kids. And so when we first got together, I was overwhelmed when I was like, oh my gosh, he had been married before. He had kids. And I was like, oh, he is a full grown man. I was like, this is serious. I was hesitant because I didn't want to interfere with any family. I mean, he had been divorced for like a year. So I called him one day and I said, Darius, I don't think I can do it. It's just too much. I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot of responsibility. I don't want to hurt anybody. And he was like,
so basically she's like breaking up with me.
I'm breaking up with him at lunchtime over the phone.
So God talked to me. He said, don't worry about it. She'll be coming back. Yeah. God told me that.
Yeah. So what I'm saying.
So I wasn't stressed out or worried. At first I was, until he said that to me. So
I said to him, I was surprised that he took it so lightly. He was like, I understand.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you do? He's like, yeah. He said, I understand.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay. So I get off the phone with him, and immediately, I don't know, it was like angels came and was like, do not break up with him. You are making a wrong decision. And I cried in my car, and it was just like, you have got to ask him back, or ask him to take you back. And I'm thinking, what? I just went through all of this, and I felt like I couldn't do it. And God was letting me know that you can do it. And this is the person that I have chosen for you. That's what I felt like he was telling me. So about 30 minutes later, I called this man back at his job. And I said, I am so sorry that I did that. Will you take me back?
And I said, you were never gone.
Girl, I said, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, I said, you're never gone. Like, God already told me. Like, he literally told me.
Yeah.
So that's the only way I had this kind of confirmation and surety of the situation.
Yeah, he just said, yeah, you were never gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I literally broke up with you. I broke up and I was going through, and he's like, yeah, he wasn't even fazed by my, what was it? Like, I was
wavering, wishy-washy.
Not realizing that God had chosen this man. And I think it was my realization I had to find in myself. I had written down all these things that I thought that I wanted in my spouse, and he was hitting all of them, but I wasn't even expecting about being a stepmom or being a person in a blended family. So with that and just some other things we both had to work through, I had to just surrender to God. I was like, this is the person that you have presented to me. This is the person who I've been presented to, and I need to trust that that's where he knew where to go. He knew what was the best for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's best. I think it's best for us to rely on him for that. Because like you said, Eddie, we make bad choices. We're trying to do this. We might be looking at a person's physical body looks, or how much money they have, or the prestige, or their family lineage, something, whatever it is. But he's like, yeah, I can see past all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
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 Exactly. It's spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Eddie, from a male's perspective, what was most important to you in your new marriage?
Like I said before, I think that I had not made ministry. I won't say I had made it a priority, but in my decision making about who I'm going to spend my time with, I wasn't factoring that part in. I was factoring that part in as far as what Eddie thought he needed, like, my list of things that, hey, here's what I want. And so what was important to me was she had to have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
But being a minister, being a pastor, what I didn't want was the stereotypical big hat front pew kind of. I did not want that.
I understand.
Yeah, so I didn't want somebody who, knew it all, I already experienced it all, that was feeling as though, okay, yeah, I'm gonna fit this. I wanted someone authentic. And that's exactly what God gave me. I want the person to have an authentic relationship with God. And I wanted them to be who God wanted them to be, because that's all I knew to be, is who God has called me to be. And so,
Yes.
to your point, it's like, hey, I know what a relationship looks like when you don't make God a priority. I know what that looks like. I'm settled on that. I do not want that. And so I had to have someone who could embrace all of me. There's some grace that comes with being married to me. That's
And vice versa.
yeah, it takes some grace. And so, but I wanted to build. I wanted someone who understood, what the call I had on my life, but I didn't want to be their lives. I didn't want to be their entire life. I wanted them to have, their own relationship with God, their own purpose, that we could bring this together for the glory of God. And so, when I met Cledra, she was an author. She had started her life coaching practice, an incredible story, and she wasn't afraid to show the hard parts of her story. And that just really wow. She can understand my hard parts because she has had some of her own.
Right.
And so she could minister. We could meet each other in a place of authenticity, that we could minister to one another. So that was important to me. They had to have a relationship with God, and it had to be real, not that other stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, one of the things that we talk about in Remarried Love is that you got to be grown if you're going to be remarried, because a lot of people have been through so many things. You never know when a trigger is going to come up, when an anchor is going to come up, something somebody said just, yesterday, how it makes you feel, but it wasn't that person that did it. It was someone in your past.
Right.
And so now you're dealing with these things that you didn't even know you're going to deal with, certain traumas.
Right.
And so you got to be grown to be able to grow from that stuff. Share this podcast with someone you know would benefit from this conversation.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you love to listen. What was important to you in your new marriage? What was like one of the most important things for you?
I think God, absolutely important, and not in a performative type way. So,
Right.
And what I specifically mean by that is I was looking for someone who knew how to argue well. That may sound, because I was clear that marriage included conflict. And so I wasn't really, I wanted to know, could we have conflict and move through it? And who would we be on the other side of conflict?
Right.
So when we had our first argument, that actually made me more attracted to him, because we argued well,
Yeah.
So
Know how to fight fair.
fight fair, or at least know when you're not being fair, like to own your stuff.
Yeah.
I was looking for someone who was clear that they had baggage, who knew I had baggage, and we were going to help each other unpack.
Yes.
So the fairy tale had been shot, right? I mean,
Right.
and so
Right.
I was really looking for the grit that I know it takes in marriage.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for, what had he endured? And the more I got to know him, I mean, enduring being a pastor alone is a whole situation. But, had he gone through things and become better?
Yeah.
So I had a totally different list this time.
Yeah.
More character driven. It was
Yes.
he fruit, like the fruit of his life
Right.
His passion of changing lives, it just wasn't on stage with the mic, but it was like when the lights and the mic were gone, that mattered to me. So I
Yeah.
promised
Yeah.
myself I'd never marry another minister. And that's why you never tell God what you're going to do. Right.
Right.
I just said that to my
Yeah.
wife the other day. Never say never.
God, never.
Because I told her, I said I would never move to the state we're actually in right now.
Yeah.
So I'm here.
To Darren's point, like, you have to be incredibly mature
Yeah.
to be remarried,
Yes.
because to believe is hard, but to believe again is a whole new level. Because it's like we both said it till death do us part before. Okay,
Yeah.
we have an example.
Right.
We have precedence. And so I think I'm just very thankful that the Lord, gifted me with him.
Yeah.
To show me what's possible on the other side of it.
I think it's beautiful that you, Eddie, said you wanted a wife that did have her own life and her own walk with God, especially being a pastor. It wasn't like you just need to do my life, but that you actually wanted that. And Cledra, that you wanted to have a person that can endure, that can go through conflict and recover quickly. I call it recovering quickly, like a professional athlete.
That's our thing.
Exactly.
Our saying is that
Professionals recover quickly.
Yeah.
Amateurs, once they get
they
hurt,
sit
they
and
just
wallow
sit
in the
there and they're
mud.
just like, I'm
oh,
so
woe
hurt.
is me. I'm hurting.
They might not even play anymore. But those professionals, they know
They play hurt.
This is what we're doing. We're gonna go into the tent.
Yeah. They're gonna get up
whatever
and
we need.
keep it going.
And then I'm gonna get back in there. And so
Yeah, coach.
I think resolving conflicts is very important with remarried couples.
Yes.
Because you are going to have a lot of them. Just because two different lives are coming together that do have baggage. Like you said, we're going to have to unpack it together.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid of baggage, or if it's too heavy for you, it's going to make your marriage hard. It's going to make it harder.
And I always tell my wife that all marriages are tested.
Yeah.
Every marriage is tested with something.
This conversation continues in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Remarried Love.
Bye-bye.
We've got this remarried love.